This week, the Supreme Court told you that you are a citizen. Then one of the justices told Congress how to take it back. If you were born in the United States, you are a citizen of the United States. The court just said so, 6-3. But stay with me all the way to the end, because they did not speak with one voice. One justice agreed to overturn the president's executive order and left a door open behind him. And almost nobody is talking about it. My name is Jacob Candelaria. I'm on your side. Let's read it together. Here's what happened. On his first day back in office, President Trump signed an executive order. It said that a child born on American soil is not a citizen if that child's parents are undocumented or here only temporarily. This week, in a case called Trump versus Barbara, the Supreme Court struck that order down. 6 justices agreed the order cannot stand. 5 of them, led by Chief Justice John Roberts, went further and said that the thing that matters most, the Constitution itself, guarantees your citizenship, the 14th Amendment, and no president can take it away with the stroke of a pen. One justice, Kavanaugh, agreed that the order had to fall, but for a narrower reason, and he added a warning we are going to talk about. 3 justices disagreed entirely. We'll get to them in the videos to come. For now, I want to stay with the majority and with Justice Kavanaugh. Let's start with the history, because the majority did, and because the history is the whole ballgame. For centuries, the rule in the English-speaking world was simple. If you were born here, you belong here. The court traces it back through Blackstone, a famous and influential commentator on English law, and one the founding generation actually read, and back to a case from 1608. Born within the country, under its protection, you owe it your allegiance, and it owes you your belonging. Listen to how broad that rule was. It didn't matter if your parents were just passing through. It didn't matter if your parents were here in defiance of the law. The child born on the soil was a natural-born subject, full stop. The rule crossed the ocean with the colonists. It became American law in, as the court put it, each and all of the states. And then once, the Supreme Court tried to replace it. In the Dred Scott decision in 1857, this court threw out the rule of the soil and replaced it with a rule of blood, holding that people descended from slaves could never be citizens, no matter where they were born. Blood, not soil. That was Dred Scott. And here is the same thing I want you to hold on to. The 14th Amendment was written to kill that idea, to bury it. Attorney General Edward Bates said in 1862, before the 14th Amendment was even ratified, that every person born in this country is a citizen at birth, and I'm quoting, without any reference to race or color. That is what subject to the jurisdiction was always understood to mean. If this country has the power to govern you, to tax you, to arrest you, to hold you to its laws, then you are subject to its jurisdiction, and your children born here are citizens. The court proved by going all the way back to Chief Justice John Marshall, the same Marshall who in Marbury versus Madison gave the court its power to say what the Constitution means and to strike down any act of a president or a Congress that violates it. Marshall defined the nation's jurisdiction as the full and complete power of a nation within its own. 1898, the court said it plainly in a case called United States versus Wong Kim Ark. Wong was born in San Francisco to Chinese parents. The government insisted he was not a citizen because his parents were Chinese subjects who, under the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1880, could never themselves become citizens of the United States. Writing for the court, Justice Horace Gray held that Wong was a citizen all the same, born here, citizen here. Whether your parents were permanent residents or a temporary visitor, you are a citizen. Now, here is the part of the majority opinion that I could not stop thinking about, and it's the reason this fight is not new and not over. The court tells us that for nearly 20 years after the 14th Amendment, nobody seriously questioned this. And then something changed. As the court puts it, as the era of Reconstruction faded, so too did the promise of birthright citizenship. What came next? The first Chinese Exclusion Act. And right around then, a new legal theory appeared, a theory that said your citizenship depends not on where you were born, but on your parents' status. And who was that theory built to exclude? Read the footnote. The scholars behind it argued that Chinese children born in America were not citizens because the Chinese, and I'm quoting, as a population could not really belong here, that they were, all of them, but temporary residents of the country. I want you to sit with that. Every time in our history that someone has gone looking for a reason to deny birthright citizenship, they have found and pointed at a particular group. First, it was people descended from slaves. Then it was the Chinese. The legal theory changes its clothes, blood, allegiance, domicile, but the job it's hired to do stays the same. To look at a disfavored group and say, not you. Your children don't count. And it's very hard reading the order in 2026, an order aimed at the children of migrants, most of them brown or black, most of them from South America or the Caribbean, not to recognize the pattern. Same tool, new target. The 14th Amendment was written to end that game forever, to take the question of who belongs out of the hands of whoever is angry that year. Which brings me to Justice Kavanaugh. Justice Kavanaugh agreed that the president loses, but he did not agree that the Constitution is what beats him. In his view, the order fails only because it breaks a federal statute, a law on the books. And then he wrote a sentence I need you to hear. He wrote that Congress could, consistent with the 14th Amendment, pass a new law creating exactly these exceptions to birthright citizenship. In his view, the door is not locked. Congress, he said, has just not yet walked through it. Not yet. Here is why that should stop you cold. The entire reason birthright citizenship is in the Constitution and not just in an ordinary statute, is to put it beyond the reach of ordinary politics. The people who wrote the 14th Amendment had watched citizenship get handed out and taken away by the mood of the moment. They had watched Dred Scott, so they took the guarantee of an ordinary law, the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which any Congress could later repeal, and welded it into the Constitution to settle it. And in the words of the court, quotes from Senator Lyman Trumbull, once and forever. To make it something a bad year and an angry majority and a stroke of a pen could never erase. Justice Kavanaugh's view would hand a piece of that power back to Congress, and we have just spent 10 minutes walking through what majorities have done with that power every time the temperature rose. So where does that leave you now? If you were born in this country, you are a citizen. 5 justices of the Supreme Court say the Constitution itself guarantees it, and that is the law today. Hold on to that. It is real and it is yours. But know the rest too. Know that one justice says the door is not bolted. Know that not yet is a sentence someone chose to write. And know that the only thing that has ever kept the door shut is people who understand what was on the other side of it. One more thing before I go. because you should know what happened to Wong Kim Ark himself, the man whose name is on the case that first affirmed birthright citizenship after the 14th Amendment was ratified, was treated for the rest of his life as if that ruling had never happened to him. 3 years after he won, in 1901, he was detained in El Paso, Texas, coming home from a trip to Mexico, and an immigration officer named Charles Meehan tried to have him deported under the Chinese Exclusion Act, the exact law his own case was supposed to hold at bay. That attempt failed. He was not deported, but the cruelty found his family anyway. 9 years later, his oldest son was turned away at the border and deported because officials refused to believe the young man was really his son. Wong Kim Ark made his last voyage to China and he never came back. We do not even know where or when he died. He won for all of us, and they never stopped coming for him. That is why we don't look away. That is why we read the whole opinion. The law was made for everyone. Most people just don't know it yet. Now you do. I'm Jacob Candelaria, on your side. In the next ones, we read the dissents and we answer them. Thanks for watching.